No, I like that you went abbreviated with fantasy, not notorious. I didn't know if that was an option.
Yeah, it is.
Or if you were debating, I meant.
No, it's not an option. I think Twitter limits so much that you can do.
That's terrible.
I know. You hate to see it.
I hate it. Yep. Good morning. Welcome to the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. We welcome you in. I know a lot of you chomping at the bit with start-sit questions from my man Nick Lepre in the house here as well. Chris is producing, so make sure you say what's up in the chat. And again, we'll take throughout the show as we lead you up until lock all of your start-sit questions. We're going to get through as many as humanly possible, but there's a bunch of other things we need to mine Nick on as far as just the week 2 slate overall view and some injury notes, and also a major question that I'm putting him on the spot for, which is a specific strategy on how he plans to dismantle in the Awesemo C League, my squad this weekend. I know you got a little ahead of everything Thursday night, brother, but we've got a battle within the battle here on this program.
Exactly. Now, I got lucky because you started Antonio Gibson, which obviously was a great move to start Antonio Gibson. But of course, the Riverboat Ron, that was a question I got a lot in my live stream earlier about what I think about McKissick now. And I am very confused about what to think about Gibson and McKissick together, because McKissick was not involved at all in week 1. Last year, he had over 100 targets, was heavily involved on third down. But in week 1, he wasn't involved. And then a couple nights ago, he's very involved. He steals a touchdown from Gibson on the goal line. So that's going to be something to monitor for the next couple of weeks. I'm still going to start Gibson every single game, but that is something to monitor. I assume we're going to get a question about that during the stream, so I might as well just answer it before it even starts. And I started with McLaurin, who dropped 27 on you. So this will be a close game. Will be a close game, especially if Tannehill and Julio Jones end up not playing too hot, just like last week. I'm in 12th place in this league right now because my team, I think, scored 90 whole points because of Ryan Tannehill and Julio. And I started Gesicki over Gronk last week, which we know how that went. So yeah, it's pretty tough scenes out here, but we have a very close matchup. So, but I still think I'm going to win, obviously.
Well, of course you think you're going to win, and the live projection has you winning by 20 full points. So let's see how this whole thing plays out. I don't trust the live projections, especially when it doesn't benefit me, but by all means, I understand that you're going into this with the win mentality. I'm just looking at it thinking, you've probably already scoured at my lineup a couple of times thinking, wow, this guy's making a couple of major mistakes here. I should walk away with it this week.
No, not necessarily, but you never know. Every week you think you're not going to make a single mistake, and then it's some obvious stuff, like Ayuk last week. We were talking about Ayuk for like an hour and a half, and then Ayuk barely touches the balls. And then Mostert talked about him for a while. He gets hurt, so you never really know what's going to happen.
So let's kind of transition into that. And look, we'll continue to tell you this throughout the day here about this fantastic offer you could take full advantage of with Yahoo. 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum with your first deposit and paid contest entry. It's unbeatable. That is a ridiculous value, upwards about $90 a month you're getting for free. So 2 free months of that Awesemo Plus package. All we ask is that you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed as well to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel, and really the DFS and odds channel as well. We'll get some props before we get out of here, but let's look at week 2, because you talked, and I think that's a really great pivot to go from McKissick and kind of trying to mine what we got already now 2 games out of Washington. But let's look at today's slate and kind of where you expect maybe some overreactions, or maybe an area or two that you can maneuver that maybe other people aren't looking at. More of an overview, Nick.
Well, right now, I think basically everyone is on Elijah Mitchell, and we are going to see today whether that is correct or very incorrect, because with San Francisco, would I be surprised at all if JaMychal Hasty led the team in rushes? No. Would I be surprised if Trey Lance came in and played running back? No, I wouldn't be surprised, because that's just how Shanahan is. I'm betting on Mitchell to be very good this week. That is my assumption. When people ask questions about him, most of the time he's going to be the answer. But I think that is going to be one of the most pivotal decisions people make this week, because it will probably make or break your lineup, whether he drops 20 points or gets you like 4 points.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And we already got the word out here. He's going to carry the load, and that feeds from what we saw with Mostert. And it's just a difficult offense, as you mentioned, to predict. I don't really know, and nor am I betting on any game flow outside of just the under for that Eagles-Niners game. It could be a blowout either way, and I wouldn't be shocked if the Niners put up 40 on this Eagles defense or put up 17 and kind of struggled through 4 quarters. So I don't know how much that's factoring in it as well, where we just really don't know much. But yeah, Elijah Mitchell clearly has been a target for a lot of people in both DFS and then season long here as well, kind of leading into this. And look, I think the only thing we know, to your point, is that coming into this game, until shit breaks down, he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, definitely. It would appear so. I definitely think that he's the lead guy. I don't know what happened with Sermon last week. He was clearly healthy. They sit him. The way that Mr. Shanahan runs this offense is quite confusing. Same thing goes with Ayuk. There's going to be questions about Ayuk in the chat. I have a feeling maybe we haven't seen any already, but with Ayuk, it's the same exact thing. He's one of those guys where he could easily do really good up against the Eagles this week, but I could also see him getting 2 points or maybe just a goose egg again this week. So he's a guy that I'm definitely looking to sit in this offense this week pretty heavily. But last week I told everyone to sit Jamar Chase and we saw what happened. So you never know.
Well, look, it's a week to week. It's a marathon, brother.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint here.
No, it's a season-long channel. I mean, my goodness, it's defined by that, by all means. Are you looking at anywhere else kind of around the league from an injury standpoint? I know we got some word with the Colts as far as Pittman and Campbell. Pittman and Campbell looks like he's out. Jonnu Smith is active. Mooney is active, although it does look like there's going to be some quarterback carousel going on there, a little more so in Chicago. Is there a name or two that jumps out from an injury standpoint? And you're right, I'm sure we're going to get to a ton of Ayuk, by the way, just because of how volatile he can be. But anybody else from an injury standpoint that's got your eye, maybe we should look at ahead of Lock?
Yeah, one guy that it's not even based on an injury. It's Will Fuller not playing this week. I think that severely boosts up the value of Jalen Waddle. Now, again, with Fuller, I'm not here to tell you if he's going to even come back this season because based upon what Flores said, I have no idea. I don't know what's going on there. But I think that gives a huge boost to Waddle. And I think it also gives a big boost to Devontae Parker. Now, I'm a Dolphins fan. I actually do not like Devontae Parker that much. I don't think he's a great player, but he is in a great situation this week. And as my assumption is that the Dolphins will be able to at least fight back somewhat, that Devontae Parker and Waddle will be big plays this week, but Waddle especially. I thought he looked really good week 1 up against the Patriots defense, and I think he could look really good this week too against the Bills. And I think realistically, the Patriots might have a better defense than the Bills.
Yeah, it's a great point too. And I wonder just the big play element, right? It's not like Fuller is going to kill the Dolphins not being out there, but there are opportunities and shots that would go to him that are going to go elsewhere. And it just seems, to your point, logically, that would fall on Waddle way more, not even more, but way more than Parker. I don't know anybody else but Waddle who would get that look.
Yeah, and same thing goes with Gesicki, who saw 0 targets last week. Maybe he sees 0 again, and Waddle really does becomes the guy this week, and that's my expectation this week. So I like Waddle a ton. I think he could easily finish inside of the top 24, but again, it is kind of risky because you're banking on the Bills not just rolling over the Dolphins, which happened in week 17, even when Matt Barkley was playing quarterback.
I noticed that you are rolling with Gronk this week over Gesicki.
Yes, I'm very confident in Gronk this week. Up against the Falcons, I mean, I don't know if anyone really saw that big of a game coming last week against the Cowboys, because all season last year, Gronk was blocking, but then in the Super Bowl, he scores those 2 touchdowns, does the same thing against the Cowboys. My expectation is he does really good against the Falcons.
Yeah, I think that the Falcons defense might be the worst we see all year, week in and week out. Couple of things we'll keep an eye on it as well. And mentioned as far as with the Colts, it looks as if Campbell is out. So Michael Pittman active, and, we'll roster accordingly as we continue here. Crowder out as well. So that's something to kind of factor in here. But beyond that, and a bunch of start sits that I kind of want to thread throughout here and kind of jump right from the jump, a couple, including Parker, have been mentioned in there. But let's start out Alex Lim. And again, we'll get to your top start sit for the day here as well, Nick, and some more inactives, anything else that kind of comes in that will factor in. But I do just want to kind of thread some of these because we have so many of them. Alex asked Tyson Williams or Chase Edmonds in full PPR.
All right, that's a great question. So with Tyson Williams, it is going to be a risky scenario this week, in my opinion, because Latavius Murray did look good in the second half of that game up against the Raiders. Tyson Williams, in my opinion, gets the nod to start, but how quick are the Ravens to switch? Now, this is a game that 0-3. They're 0-3 right now, Lamar Jackson versus Patrick Mahomes, so that's not the greatest. but he is still in a good situation on a run-heavy team. So my lean personally, if you're willing to be a little bit more risky, that's typically how I am in fantasy. I'm a little more risky. Then yeah, I would go ahead and play Tyson Williams, but Edmonds is a very safe option. We saw him get a lot of work last week, and it wasn't until the end of the game that James Conner really started to see work, but the Titans were already, they were done for in that game. It was already over by the time that Conner got a lot of his work. So I expect Chase Edmonds to be in a good game, but I would lean with Williams.
G Money, Corey Davis or Parker?
Corey Davis or Parker? That's a good question as well. I would go with, that's tough. That is very tough. I just spilled my fucking water on the ground, but the answer is Corey Davis.
Well, it's better than on your keyboard, right?
Yeah, it is much better. So yeah, the answer is going to be,
it's got to be Davis, right?
It's got to be Corey Davis. I mean, even last week, it looked terrible for Davis. And then out of nowhere, halfway through the game, Zach Wilson adjusted, the whole team adjusted. Against the Patriots, it's going to be tough, but I think Corey Davis is in for a solid game. And again, with Parker, I really do believe that Waddle is going to be the big benefactor of that, but I still do like Parker a decent amount, just not above Waddle.
I know we're mortal enemies this week here in our Awesemo C League, but I can throw you a bone and do a read if you need to clean up your floor, by all means.
No, it's fine. It is
okay. You're not in some like jug of water didn't spill over and it's slowly filling up the room.
It was barely any. There was like a couple sips of water left in that thing, so it's okay.
Okay, we'll get back to a bunch more here as we lead you up to lock. And speaking though, all that you need for season-long fantasy football coverage is here. We have it. The NFL Express Weekly Pass is just $3.95 and more expansive than ever. The trade value tool, strength of schedule tool. We have fantasy streaming helper as well. Everything that you can get with the NFL DFS player and ownership rankings. It's a ton. The NFL DFS showdown, single game contest, and you'll get projected ownership and optimal lineup probabilities for tier contests on DK. So it's insane what you can get for the NFL Express weekly package. Awesemo Plus, join, pick your pass up for only $3.95. And make sure you take full advantage of everything at Awesemo Plus. We'll tell you more about the Yahoo package here, where you can get 2 free months of that. Awesemo Plus Platinum, not just Plus, but Platinum as well. All right, let's look for you wherever you have scoured across rosters to questions you've got from people following along, your own chat here on Awesemo as well throughout the week. What's your number one go-to start sit question, or at least one that you've been struggling with that you want to put out there?
Yeah, it's probably the Mitchell is definitely one of the highest ones out there. Also, another one that I've gotten a lot is about Justin Jefferson. It seems like a lot of people are nervous about Jefferson after last week. I mean, Adam Thielen looked really good. Could Adam Thielen be the number one target there? Probably not, right? Justin Jefferson looked great last year. This Osborne fella ends up scoring some points. I mean, I don't see him being super involved. A lot of people picked him up off the waiver wire. I don't really trust him at all. So I think Jefferson will have a big game. And the other one was between Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. A lot of people are very angry about Robert Woods, which is understandable, right? I expected Robert Woods to be the number one guy there. And then it comes out during the game. Collinsworth is like, Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford, they eat breakfast every morning together 2 hours before, and they practice together. It's like, where was that information, Chris, when I was doing my fantasy drafts? I don't know why he didn't tell us. But with that said, I think Cooper Kupp is the lean there. But would I be surprised if Woods had a big game? Not at all. This is an offense that is going to be putting up big points week in, week out. Stafford looked really good. Van Jefferson scored. I don't expect that to be the normal for the Rams. So I would expect Robert Woods to have a solid game. But again, it is slightly worrisome that Kupp was that involved.
So let me ask, because I'm rolling with Kupp in our league here, and the fact the 10 targets and the big game that he had, you mentioned Van Jefferson as well. And I wonder if the concern that people may have is slightly misguided in the sense that if Woods has a big game, that doesn't necessarily mean that Kupp can't. It's probably taking away from the productivity you just mentioned that Van Jefferson had, I would think way more than Kupp, to where Kupp and Woods could probably coexist, but somebody else, if it's Higbee or Jefferson, whoever it may be, is probably going to suffer from a productivity standpoint.
Yeah, definitely. And we also saw Higbee not play ultra well in that game when Jefferson put up the big points. So maybe this is a Higbee week more of. I think a lot of people in DFS terms are really on that game very heavily. So I think that's going to be a good game for the Rams as a whole. And on the season, don't worry too much about Robert Woods. Don't panic. That's one of the biggest keys, like week 1, week 2, early on, is just not to, like, Aaron Jones has a bad game. You don't just trade him for Miles Sanders or something, right? Or Najee Harris, a lot of people scared of. Ezekiel Elliott. Just make sure not to panic early on in the season. One of the bigger questions as well I got this week now it's already been gone, but it was with Saquon Barkley. So
Right.
now looking into week 3, obviously not super important. So I'll just talk about it real quick. With Saquon Barkley, what I saw was that he looked good for one play, and that's about it. I'm still pretty nervous about it. I don't know what Joe Judge is doing. I don't know if he's going to get the full workload week 3. That's all I'm going to say right now. I know we're going to get a lot of questions next week about it. So right now, I am still not very confident in Barkley going into week 3.
Are you looking to trade, not even sell low, but just trade maybe in the medium range and try to get somebody of value back for Barkley, knowing that it's going to be such a long play for him to really produce, especially as shittier and shittier as this Giants team gets?
Yeah, the issue though is you have to believe in him at this point. You have to believe that eventually he's going to turn it around. I mean, you drafted him in the first round. You basically, it was a risky decision to make. You made the decision, so you almost kind of have to sit in the decision and just hope that maybe after next week they unleash him, because he did look solid, with that one run. But besides that, it wasn't very good for Barkley. I don't know what's happening in New York. Seems like Joe Judge, I don't know. I'm not going to comment on the Giants. I'm not a fan of the Giants, but he just doesn't.
Rip the Giants.
He just doesn't.
Go ahead.
I don't know. He's like a hardo, right? He just seems like a guy that tries really hard and it just doesn't work. So I don't know. And plus, what is Kenny Golladay doing there? I feel bad for the guy, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, until that check clears. But yes, I understand what you're saying. Ultimately.
Oh yeah, obviously. I mean, they backed up the Brinks truck for him. The guy got $73 million to get 4 targets a game. Makes no fucking sense.
No, it's amazing. Before we hit the chat, let me throw one at you here. And I'm just curious, because I'm not going to just do one name here for a starter sit. I wanted to throw 2 other guys in there as well, and maybe get your opinion on how much they can be bench players that could be starters. But the big one that I'm dealing with that I saw as well, that I brought up earlier in the week, was Mike Evans, and trying to find a pivot here for Evans. Not that I don't trust Mike Evans to have a big game. Everybody can have a big game against Atlanta, but the ball moves around and he's not been dominant by any means. So Mike Evans or Mike Williams, who would jump out at you between these two?
Well, I'm going to play Mike Evans. People, you see, I wasn't someone big in the offseason on Mike Evans because I realized that, hey, Tom Brady, he doesn't just lock into one guy. He throws the ball around with Godwin there, with Gronk there, with Antonio Brown there. It's going to be worrisome. But here he gets Atlanta. I would be shocked, genuinely shocked, if he did not put up a big performance this week. It feels like every week we're probably going to want to just start all of them, right? And then one of them is going to end up not playing too hot. And then the other 2 light it up, which is going to be very confusing. But at the same time, you're going to feel stupid if you sit him for Mike Williams. Mike Williams is a great matchup up against Dallas. So I do like that matchup. I think he's a fine start, but you have to go with the other Mike and Mr. Mike Evans for the Bucs.
All right, smash that thumbs up button. We see more people popping in. You can follow Nick on Twitter at NotoriousFNTSY, at Shander Show for me. And make sure you're subscribed, of course, to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. Mo Balls, start Cole Beasley. I think that was a typo. Maybe it was an inadvertent or purpose typo, whatever. Start Cole Beasley or DJ Shark?
Oh, that's a great question. So Mo Balls from my channel. Shout out to
half
Mr. Mo.
PPR, by the way. Yeah.
So Cole Beasley, he's in a bad matchup against the Dolphins, but the Bills always seem to just beat down on the Dolphins. Makes me sad as a Dolphins fan, but it's true. That's probably what's going to happen. I mean, even up against Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, it doesn't seem to matter. The Dolphins just can't stop the Bills, but I would lean with DJ Chark now. I am still someone who heavily believes that Marvin Jones is the #1 receiver to get there in Jacksonville, but Jacksonville, even despite Lawrence not looking the greatest, put up a bunch of points. I think they could put up some decent pointage here, if that's even a correct word, up against the Denver Broncos. So I would lean with Chark there. But again, I do feel more confident in Chark though than Cole Beasley. So yeah, I'd go with Chark.
Just create words until people call you out on it. And you have the confidence that it's a real world. That's fine, right?
Yeah, real world. That is a real world.
Yeah, exactly. See, my slip as I try to make a joke on it. That should just tell you where it is. All right. So M. Lazy, hopefully that's the right pronunciation. Lazy, full point PPR flex spot. T. Patrick, R. Jones, or R. Anderson?
Ooh, I would go with. See, I like Tim Patrick a lot. What were the other options?
Jones or Anderson?
Jones or Anderson? I'm going with Anderson.
Probably stay away from Jones, right?
Yeah, I'm going Anderson. I think Anderson is a guy that you see, last week he barely did anything, right? He scores the touchdown, isn't very involved, but this week they're getting the Saints. So you would think the Saints are going to be able to, it'll be like a more back and forth affair than it was with the Jets. So if they're going back and forth, then you would hope Anderson and Darnold, they have that connection from the Jets. So I think Anderson should be the start this week. Tim Patrick's a guy that I like, but I'm also so cautious about Sutton because I think Sutton's way better than him, but Teddy just didn't look to him last week. So I'm hoping there's a bounce back game for him. So I'm going to lean with Anderson.
I saw his name pop up a couple of other times. So Jones, just the third name mentioned in there. Is it just a general stay away from him or based on that specific matchup?
It's more of a specific matchup kind of deal.
Okay. Super chat, Bernard Wilson, full PPR. And thank you, Bernard. We appreciate that. It's not necessary, but always appreciate it. Full PPR, start a flex. Marvin Jones, Jacoby Myers, or Robbie Anderson. We'll get to his second one in a second here. But look, you throw the super chat out here, we'll definitely answer both. Sometimes if it's just the regular chat, you may only get your first of 2 or 3 or 10. Start 15 people here for Nick. You throw the super chat out there, we'll get everything. So let's start with the first one. Marvin Jones, Jacoby Myers, or Robbie Anderson?
Marvin Jones. I think I have Robbie Anderson.
You didn't even hesitate.
Ranked ahead. I have Robbie Anderson ranked ahead of Marvin Jones, but in my head, for some reason, I just like Marvin Jones every single week. Marvin Jones is one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. The only issue is the Broncos defense. But again, I think that Lawrence is able to do something there. I think he could score at least 2 touchdowns, one to Chark, maybe one to Marvin Jones, and you'll be pretty excited because it seems like Urban Meyer genuinely has zero idea that he just needs to hand the ball to James Robinson. So.
Yeah, Nelson Aguilar looks pretty good. Jacoby Myers, I think, would just be a concern of the unknown, right, of that offense still with Mac Jones. And then I love the big play potential with Robbie Anderson, but I don't necessarily love the matchup so much as well. And you're right, Marvin Jones just has the volume versus the other two guys. All right, so one more from Bernard on the super chat, half PPR now. Harris, Tyson Williams, or Davis as your running back?
Definitely not playing Davis this week up against the Bucs. We saw what Zeke did last week. Mike Davis is not Zeke. Not as good as Zeke, so probably not going to put up even close to as many points as him. I mean, he's a fine start in half PPR because you're going to hope he gets some dump offs. And then Tyson Williams is also a guy that I like a decent amount, but there is the risk with Latavius Murray. And the first option who just escaped my mind, that is who I wanted to go with, but I forgot who it was.
Shit. I'm sorry. I had the super chat up here. Oh, it was Harris.
Yeah.
Over Williams or Mike Davis. Yeah.
Yeah. Damian Harris is the answer there. I think the Jets defense is not very good. Now, the biggest risk with Harris is that he fumbled. He's the reason why the Patriots lost to the Dolphins. Yep. So that must suck, but not for me. But yeah, Damian Harris, he's going to get the ball. There's no way Bill Belichick's smart enough to realize that he's the best running back on the team. He also saw 3 targets last week. Last year, he had 7 total targets. So that's promising for an uptick in targets. Even if it's only like 2-3 targets a game, that's better than none. It definitely is. So I'd like Damian Harris this week against the Jets. He ran for 100 on the Dolphins. He might get 200 against the Jets.
Yeah, that's insane. The targets, by the way, and I'll pull this up before we get out of here just to look at his prop bet there, because 3 targets, even if it's 1.5 or 2.5, as far as the prop, chances are that he's going to get some looks, right? I mean, that's pretty much a baseline you would think moving forward. Doesn't mean that he's going to get 6-7 targets a game, but you could expect at least a handful, I would think, each game.
Yeah, definitely. Last season, it was so few. Like a game, like maybe they don't even look at him last year because Cam Newton was under center. Now Mac Jones, he's more likely to dump it off. Now James White is a guy that's going to be getting a majority of the targets on the team out of the backfield. But yeah, I would anticipate maybe 3-4 targets a game for Harris in most matchups. Now against the Jets, maybe not right? Because maybe they're just hammering the ball down their throat. But I think that on the season as a whole, I'm not sure people are going to correct themselves to thinking that he's going to be a guy that gets at least a couple dump offs a game.
I can get over 1.5 at plus 105. BetMGM, who does a lot with our Awesemo odds channel. That's not bad right there. I thought it would be 2.5 based on last week, but you're right. The Jets defense, their ability to move the ball on the ground, that might be a little bit of a deterrent. All right, Garrett McInnes on the chat. Keenan Allen or Justin the Jet Jefferson? There's your concern question about Justin Jefferson, paired though with Keenan Allen.
Yeah, now that is a question that is basically a coin flip, right? Because Keenan Allen gets the Cowboys. That is about as easy as it gets. Justin Jefferson, not in as easy of a matchup, obviously. And that was a team that played relatively well last week. The Cardinals defense destroyed the Tennessee Titans, but I don't expect Tannehill to get sacked 5 times in the game by Chandler Jones. So I think I would personally go with Jefferson, but it really is as true of a coin flip as it could get between the two.
Yeah. And you mentioned that just people having that concern with Jefferson coming into it, a situation like that. I mean, it would take 2 guys being completely removed from the game. It's probably going to be the difference of which one of these guys blows up in a good way, right? More so than because you're going to get, I think, a consistent amount of points. To your point about the matchup against Dallas, that's pretty much locked in. It may not be breaking the slate points, but it's pretty much locked in looks and volume for Keenan Allen by all means.
Yeah, 100%. Keenan Allen looked pretty good up against the football team. The football team defense, obviously, though, miles above the Cowboys, even if the Washington football team defense looked terrible against the Giants, just so much better than the Cowboys.
I want to come back to Ronald Jones because I think he's going to be an interesting name today based on the matchups that people come out with start sits. And again, hit that thumbs up button as you see some more people coming in. Remind them of the same. Make sure you're subscribed as well. You can even hit that share button. I know a lot of folks coming from mixed streams, so you can hit that share button and put it out there in your social media vehicle of choice and remind people like, yo, Nick's on right now. So you want to jump in and make sure you get some insight here and then take full advantage of that Yahoo promo. My goodness, 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum with your first deposit and paid contest entry. So Ronald Jones coming up again, but this one's a little more interesting. And I think maybe the focus of it a little narrower with the matchup. Griffin Conway on the chat, Melvin Gordon or Ronald Jones, non-PPR?
Non-PPR, okay. Well, Melvin Gordon's in a way better matchup. Ronald Jones, Bruce Arians comes out after the game and he says that Ronald Jones is still our starter. Now, Bruce Arians is notoriously just lies straight to your face. He tells you one thing, does the other when it comes to running backs. I would personally lean that I would start Melvin Gordon about 1 million times over Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones is just a complete dice roll every single week. Wouldn't be surprised if he has a big game against Atlanta. Wouldn't be surprised if Leonard Fournette did. Wouldn't be surprised if Giovanni Bernard had a big game. So it's kind of like the 49ers, but even more confusing in my opinion.
That's fair. It's a good one then to stay away from. All right. I'm curious how you approach, and I think this is Gage here, right? Beasley or Singletary as a full flex PPR.
Russell Gage was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Russell Gage, that guy completely screwed all of us last week. He was a guy that I talked about. I was like, oh, well, this looks like a good matchup against the Eagles. The Falcons looked good at the beginning, and then about maybe 10 minutes into the game, they just had no idea how to move the ball. They looked terrible. I'm not trusting Russell Gage. I think they play fine up against the Bucs, but you'd have to pay me some serious money to throw Russell Gage into my lineup. Singletary against the Dolphins. That's a solid matchup because the Dolphins defense is atrocious against the run. They're good against the pass. We saw Damian Harris run a zillion yards all over us, 100 yards last week. Who's the other option besides Singletary? Because that's probably the answer.
Oh, sorry. I was just looking up Zach Moss. It was Beasley, Cole Beasley.
Yeah, I'm going Beasley. And Zach Moss is supposed to play, I believe.
How much do you think that's going to truly chunk into Singletary's productivity? Because the matchup alone for both of these running backs, as you mentioned from what happened last week, should be favorable. So I get it that volume may take a hit whenever you add Moss into that backfield, but does that really take away big play potential or even a couple of big runs, maybe even yards per rush from Singletary?
I think it does. I think it does because I personally think that Zach Moss is the better runner. I do think Singletary is the better pass catcher. How much does that play into the game? I'm not sure, but I think when they're both in the game, it's going to be similar to like Ronald Jones, where you're really just scratching your head trying to figure out which guy to start. And last week, I think Singletary was the benefactor to the fact that Zach Moss was hurt. I think if Zach Moss was in the game, you would have been very confused last week, just like you are right now. Now, maybe after this week, we see, hey, Singletary's the clear guy there. Moss is more of like the reliever kind of a move there. And then if that's the case, then boom, you start Singletary for the future. But until we are, at least in my opinion, we see it with our own eyes, then I'm not willing to risk it with Singletary, whereas I think Beasley will play well, even against a tough Dolphins pass defense.
All right, so we have this really cool thing going on right now. Beyond, of course, the 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum with your first deposit and paid contest entry, which is easy. First time in there, make sure you use that and take full advantage of the Awesemo Plus Platinum. But we have, and I'm sure you've seen this now with Yahoo, Nick, the 2K Everybody Wins, and it's an Awesemo exclusive. It's $1 to enter. That's it. You pick 13 players, pardon me, from the 13 games today. The top 537 share a $2,000 prize pool with $200 going to first place. It's guaranteed to run even if it doesn't fill, which is really cool there. So take full advantage of that. You can see the link that we have. And as Chris has put this up as well, we have this Awesemo exclusive thing running. And I love anything that's titled Everybody Wins. Exactly. That's always a good hook for me, right? Everybody wins, I'm in. I need stuff like that. You, not so much. You're doing okay.
Oh, no, trust me. I need that too.
All right. Randall Fernelius, Hines, Gaskin, or Singletary, PPR scoring, full PPR.
Okay, I also like this one. Gaskin, as a Dolphins fan, I understand how his backfield works. It's Gaskin, then Ahmed with Brown. Now, the issue here is that Brown may vulture a touchdown in this game. I could see that happening. Brown was pretty involved later on in the game up against the Pats when we iced the game out. So I think Gaskin's fine, but I'd lean Hines. I think that in this game with the Colts, I think they're going to be down. And when they're down, Jonathan Taylor isn't in on third down. You see Nyheim Hines. Nyheim Hines was used relatively heavily last season. He was used relatively highly last week when they're down up against Seattle. And Marlon Mack seems to be a non-factor in this offense, which is obviously good for Taylor as well as Hines. So I would lean Hines in this matchup.
All right, let me push on Gaskin here because I'm curious how you see it versus somebody else I brought up earlier, and I was dealing with this on my own. Gaskin or Williams, full PPR in the flex, Mike Williams.
Gaskin,
running back versus wideout.
All right, so this is it really depends on the matchup because we saw how bad Najee Harris did up against the Bills, and then we have now we have Myles Gaskin, who's not as good as Najee Harris. But again, I think the Dolphins are going to put up more points than the Steelers. But at the same time, Mike Williams matchup in most situations, unless we have the question like we had earlier, where in my opinion, it just wasn't Mike Williams, like Mike Evans versus Mike Williams. I think Mike Williams is going to be the answer to a lot of those questions. So I would play Mike Williams up against Dallas. I think there's a back and forth game. I think Herbert puts up potentially over 300 plus yards. I think Dak could easily do the same thing. And that's a great parlay if you're talking about betting. But yeah, I like Mike Williams a lot this week. The only issue with Williams is that this guy tries way too hard out there to catch the ball, and he throws his body into these positions where he get hurt. That's the only issue. But yeah, again, you can never predict injuries, so you're just going to play him.
Now, real quick, what was that parlay that you threw out there? Because I'm going to go out there and bet this here in PA.
All right, 300 plus yards, passing yards for both Dak and Herbert. I bet you it's probably like plus 180 or something like that, depending on which book you use.
Well, Herbert individually is 300.5, and Prescott is 306.5. Okay. So it would take, long methodical drives in order for that to not happen and still hit that total. I'm with you. That is amazing right there. All right. We'll definitely follow that along there because both guys are even manageable in their individual player prop, not to mention when you put them together. And that's probably going to get you more, by the way, than minimal plus money. That's probably going to get you a decent return. Look at you extending the advice out into the betting world. We love it, Nick.
Exactly. I'm 6-0 on picks right now. 6-0, except for this parlay, but I don't count the parlays as a pick. So
wait a second. We buried the lead here. 31 minutes into the show, and you're telling me that you're 6-0 on picks. Yeah, well, you should be giving these picks out throughout the show, man.
But then if I give them out, then they're going to lose. That's what happens.
Give me one that you like before we get out here and go back to some chat.
Let me pull this up real quick.
The number one, you give us your number one start sit. You identify the biggest question or conundrum out there that people are having and address it. So what's the number one play that you've had? I assume.
This week? Now, normally I'm the over-under guy. I like betting the over-unders. So over 55 in Dallas versus the Chargers. I know that seems high, but I'm going to be honest, I think that goes over.
Yep. I love that. I was talking about that with Ross on the Awesemo betting show earlier this week. The fact that you as a 6-0 man like it as well, then I'm just tailing you, brother. It's your world. We're just tailing it, Nick.
Exactly. Yeah. The only bet I lost last week was the parlay with the Raiders versus the Ravens. I hit like all the touchdowns in the game.
Okay.
But the only thing I missed was the Ravens winning the game, which of course they choked away at the end. So
like you said, parlays don't count against the record.
Yeah, they don't count. Yeah, they don't.
We're in good shape. Rashad Kareem on the chat. Your buddy now. You can't get away no matter what it is. I think it's your folks trolling you on Devontae Parker. This is going to be like a weekly thing, questions about Parker. But I think this is actually a good one, although I know my answer, and I believe I know yours as well. Still, though, Devontae Parker or Antonio Brown at the flex?
All right, we're going with AB. Again, with Antonio Brown, you risk it every week. Will this be the AB down game? Because it could be the Godwin down game, it could be the Evans down game, or maybe it's the down Gronk game. And, my fantasy team suffers from that. But I would go with Antonio Brown this week really heavily over Parker. I think Brown has the potential to be maybe the best receiver in fantasy football up against the Falcons. Again, that's obviously a tall order with how stacked the top 12 is, but it is entirely possible. So Antonio Brown would be my lean very heavily.
All right, more people popping in. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. We're giving you free advice, not only for your season-long fantasy football team, but Nick is flexing when it comes to some picks. Don't worry, I got a couple that we get out of here. People could just fade me and make some money. Elijah Mitchell was a big topic at the start of the show. Definitely a name that we should keep an eye on, at least heading into this game, because clearly, as Kyle Shanahan made note earlier today and really throughout the week, as expected with Raheem Mostert out, he, at least at the start of the game, is going to carry a ton of the workload. So with that in the background, we also know what's happening with Chase Edmonds. Whiplash on the chat, Edmonds or Elijah Mitchell to start. And let's go for the hell of it, full PPR.
Okay. The lean here is Mitchell. I think now, again, fantasy football, it's a lot about safety versus risk. I'm personally someone that's always going to take the risk. I'm trying to win here, trying to put 30 on my opponent. The best way to do that is starting Elijah Mitchell. Now, Chase Edmonds, he's a safe bet this week. I think he's going to get some dump offs. I know what he's going to do, but I also know what the 49ers can do. Now, the Eagles' run defense looked pretty good last week, but the Falcons' offense looked very bad last week. So how much can you weigh the defense into that? I'm not sure. The offensive line of the Falcons struggled immensely. I felt bad for Matt Ryan, but it is what it is. I think that Elijah Mitchell is in for a huge game this week. Now, again, he could completely fuck you over by scoring 5 points, right? And Trey Sermon scores 20 points, or JaMychal Hasty scores 20 points, or the fullback gets 20 points, right? Because that's just how Kyle Shanahan does it. But I'm still going to go ahead and lean with Mitchell. I'm taking the risk, and I think it could pay off heavily with like 20 plus points in that game.
Yeah, and honestly, I think from a game script standpoint, neither one of these teams is going to pull away. There's going to be a commitment to the run game that San Francisco is going to have to stay with just to move the ball down the field. It's not just going to be Deebo Samuel breaking loose here for 15, $190, or Kittle as well. Not to say they won't have good games, but yeah, I can definitely see the need to continue to feed running backs with that. So let's move on here. This is an interesting one from Desi on the chat. DJ Moore or Nyheim Hines?
Ooh,
at the
great
flex.
question. Great question. So with DJ Moore, his biggest issue on the season every year is that he's always able to put up these big yards. Like he's always able to do that, but he's not able to score the touchdown. And that is one of the most worrisome things every single week. Now, up against the Saints, this is a game. It's not going to be like against the Packers, right? We saw that game against the Packers, and they just got rolled. The Packers seemed like they didn't care. Aaron Rodgers is laughing on the sideline. Everyone else is crying because they're down by 7 zillion to Jameis Winston. He throws 5 touchdowns, 0 picks. It's insane. But this week, I'm feeling Nyheim Hines is the safer bet. But again, I'm not a safer guy, so I'm going with DJ Moore. But Nyheim Hines is definitely very safe this week, as he should be getting at least 12 plus PPR points in my mind.
Yeah, big play. We talked about Robbie as well. Big play capability there. So yeah. I think that's what you're balancing, right? Safety versus the explosion that could come from Moore. So I'm going to bank this, one of your guys on your squad, with my guy in real life on my squad, because I did see this pop up on Twitter, Don T, earlier. And I know that you, for better or worse, are rostering Julio Jones this weekend in our matchup, our head-to-head matchup. So if you had the start sit between Julio or Devontae Smith, I'd imagine, and this is your squad, right? We're not locked into one. I'd imagine you probably lean Smith in this case.
Well, it really is risk versus safe. Like Devontae Smith is probably safer, but he's also going up against the Niners, whereas I think Tennessee is going to get right back in. I'd probably start Julio. if I'm being honest. I think it's the same thing with the Packers. Do you really expect this organization that everyone expects to make the playoffs, potentially make it to the Super Bowl on either side? Now, again, not everyone clamoring for the Titans to do that, but for the Packers, like, how do you expect them to just completely fall off the edge of the earth? I don't think so. I think Julio has a good game. A.J. Brown was the only guy who did good for the Titans last week. He got the touchdown bailout special there, but I'm still going to lean with Julio. I'm still trusting in Julio. If he plays bad this week, if the Titans play bad this week, then I will feel dumb because Julio Jones was one of the guys that I was heavily clamoring for all offseason. I still think he's going to be good. I'm confident this week. I'm playing Julio.
Yeah, I don't disagree by any means. I think with Devontae Smith, what's going to be interesting is how this offense looks in tight games. Like how this offense looks when they are not up by a bunch and the Atlanta Falcons dog shit defense is letting them take chunks, gashes out of them, because I think you're going to see a lot more moving the ball around. And that's probably going to take away where Smith, to your point, isn't going to look as safe in the next couple of weeks against Tampa, against Dallas even, and now as we see against San Francisco, as it was just everybody was getting open and doing their thing against Atlanta. So I agree with you. I actually think getting ahead of the curve in that specific matchup, Devontae Smith can still have a good game, but not a blow-up game in a good way like we could see from Julio, especially as you point about A.J. Brown, where so many defenses are going to be focused on at least stopping him first. This might be a sneaky pathway to success here for Julio Jones, especially if people are kind of nervous on what to expect this week.
Yeah, people are very nervous about Julio Jones.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not even like 100% all in, like top 12 receiver. I have him, I think, around the range of like 18 to 20, but like you're really betting a lot on the 49ers defense to look terrible. Like, whereas I think that there's a higher chance that Julio just has a solid game and he's much safer in my mind.
One more time before, and we'll tell you a couple of times here, but one more time before we get back to the chat, at least about this awesome contest that's happening on Yahoo, courtesy of Yahoo and us, this Awesemo exclusive. And you'll see, as Chris is always on top of everything, the way to get in, the dollar to enter. You can pick players from the 13 games today. And then the best part about the 2K Everybody Wins Awesemo exclusive is that the top 537 share a $2,000 prize pool with $200 going to first place. That's a pretty good increase right there. You bet $1 to win 200. That's a return that everybody will take no matter what. And it's guaranteed to run even if it doesn't fill. So good luck out there. Take full advantage again of all that we're doing with Yahoo. From that, the first 2 months free of Awesemo Plus Platinum. All you need to do is your first time entry and contest entry as well. Sign up for the first time and your contest entry as well. All right, a couple of different positions that we haven't really spoken about. Ray Eats moving to the tight end spot here. Jared Cook or Robert Tonyan this week?
All right, that's a great question. The issue here with this question is that it's another one where it's like safety versus risk with the high reward. So last year, Tonyan was one of those guys. I believe he scored 6 touchdowns in the last 7 games. His point total was heavily reliant on the touchdown. Last week, the Packers play terrible. Tonyan plays terrible, obviously. So did Devontae Parker was okay, but not as good as you would expect. Rodgers was quarterback 36. So obviously the whole team disappointed last week. And then you have Jared Cook this week going up against the Cowboys. We just saw what Gronk did to the Cowboys.
Yep.
So reality, if you're trying to be safe, then you just play Cook, right? Cook could easily finish inside like the top 8 tight ends. Whereas Tonyan up against Detroit, I could see him being the best tight end in fantasy football, but it's a lot more risky because there is obviously the chance that the Packers are just done for, right? Finito, it's all over. But I don't think that happens. So I would lean with Tonyan, but it is very close. It's not like there's a big wide gap between the two.
All right, Kicks plug. This is interesting based on both names already being brought up and kind of explaining the expectations in the respective game flows here. Devontae Smith or Corey Davis. And it may not be as obvious, I think, on the surface here, right?
Yeah, definitely not. The thing with Corey Davis is that matchup is tough, but the same thing goes with Devontae Smith because the 49ers defense looked really good. And then I've talked about this before, but why do you do prevent defense? It doesn't prevent really anything, if I'm being honest. It just lets the other team just move up the field and then Oh, and then you win by 8 instead of just playing the same defense that held them to so little points. So the 49ers defense, despite dealing with injuries as they always do, I still expect will be pretty solid. But I'm still going to lean with Devontae Smith in this question. I just believe more heavily in the Eagles over the Jets. So that's just how I lean with it. But wouldn't be surprised if Corey Davis does really good. It's just the Patriots defense just seems so tough to me that I think there is a chance Wilson struggles. But again, I'm still starting Davis in a lot of these start-sit scenarios, just not above Smith.
Yeah, and I think to back your point about Davis, and the matchup is always going to be a big determining factor on this, but so is volume. And it looks like Wilson has a clear rapport with Corey Davis and will be willing to, and I'll use the phrase Lofty put up earlier in the week, force feed the pill, right, to Corey Davis as much as possible, which may help mitigate being taken out of a football game, because there's one thing if you just avoid him after a half of being locked up, but it looks like Wilson won't move away from him no matter if they're getting beat 17-3.
Yeah, no, he doesn't seem to care at all about what the other team is doing. So I expect,
which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's very good for the player, obviously, very good for Corey Davis. So I expect Davis to have a solid game. But again, I don't know. Smith just looked really good to me last week. Like, there were so many people so nervous about Smith, and just the way I saw him play, I feel pretty confident in him pretty much week in and week out. But again, these are two receivers you're talking about that have two tougher matchups on the week.
Yeah, they're going to move him around a lot too with Devontae Smith. And the creativity is going to be there. He's going to get the ball quick. He's going to be asked to go down deep. He's going to be all over the place throughout the middle, short middle, quick screens. So especially in a PPR league where you have Devontae Smith, I think that's the one thing, Nick, we can count on with him moving forward, is that there will be a lot of targets. There may not be big play receiving yard types, but I think that there's going to be a ton of targets no matter what. Does that make sense?
Definitely. I believe so as well. I think the Eagles are really going to surprise most people probably this year, because no one talks. That's not normally how the NFC East works. Like, the team that no one talks about ends up being the best. So
I know I'm almost regretting I didn't go under 6.5 wins for the season, but look, it's a long year.
It is a long year.
You want to know a hell, try betting the under in a city where you can't publicly make that known that you've bet the under. You can't go out in public and watch my team. All right, so
ashamed.
I know it's. Oh no, trust me, that and beyond. A couple of quarterback questions, and let me start, because this one I saw earlier in the day, and I wanted to earmark it and bring this up. And I'm dealing with this specifically, so I thought, you know what, maybe I can angle this, and at least under the guise of other people are talking about it as well. And I'll admit, this is the two quarterbacks that I'm dealing with on my squad going up against you. So if there was ever an opportunity or reason for you to take the fifth and just move on to another question, this technically would be it. But just know that there are other people out there dealing with this as well that you're shunning. Okay, Nick?
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Joe Burrow or Kirk Cousins at the quarterback spot? Both expected to throw. We talked about Justin Jefferson and kind of getting over these concerns. Chicago versus Arizona, these defensive matchups between these two quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm going Burrow. I was shocked to see Jamar Chase play good last week. I was so shocked. Like, I don't know why he went out 2 days before the game and told us he doesn't know how to see a football, and then he does that. So I don't know. I'm confident in Burrow this week. The Chicago defense, either the Chicago defense is underwhelming or the Rams defense or the Rams offense is really good. It's either one or the other. And I'm starting to think that maybe the Chicago Bears defense is not the same defense it was a couple of years ago. I'm going Joe Burrow. I expect Joe Burrow to put up some big points. I think Chicago is going to fight back the Andy Dalton revenge game narrative. I like Joe Burrow over Kirk Cousins. I do like Kirk Cousins a lot, though, this week. He's ranked pretty high in my quarterback rankings, but I do lean Burrow over him.
All right, so let's push that with Nick Lay's question on the chat, giving you the option here for the QB wideout stack. Is it Kirk and Jefferson, Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, Herbert, Williams, or Burrow and Chase? See, so now you have the two. Just to be out there, at least, that I'm not the only one asking about Cousins and Burrow. But that's an interesting one when you add the top stack to that as well.
Yeah, when you're adding the stack to it, I would probably go Kirk Cousins, because I think Jefferson could be one of the top 5 receivers on the week, whereas I don't see the same thing with Chase. Now, Chase, again, I think he's going to be fine. He's a solid wide receiver too, solid flex option, but I don't see him necessarily finishing top 12, top 5. Like, I could see Justin Jefferson doing. So when you add those two together, I'd probably lean with the Kirk Cousins stack.
All right, more people popping in. Again, hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you are subscribed here to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel as we lead you up until lock. A bunch of other questions from different positions. We didn't do a ton with the quarterbacks. I do like this one. Braden King, should I start Hurts or Stafford?
Oh, should I start Hurts or Stafford? I would probably go with Stafford.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, I like Hurts. I'm starting Hurts. I have Hurts on so many of my teams, so I'm playing Hurts a lot this week. But something tells me that Stafford's really just going to have a top 5 season in fantasy. And this matchup doesn't scare me at all. So I'm going with Stafford.
There's no running, but it's I guess you're looking at the difference of, or really who's more prone to turn the ball over. I don't think you'll see a pick so much as you'll see a fumble or two from Hurts. We saw that in the preseason and last year. He holds on to the ball, and Atlanta's pass rush is non-existent compared to San Francisco. So just from a turnover, and look, I don't know how much you approach this when you're looking at start sits, especially from the quarterback position, Nick, but more of a general, I guess, point/question to you is from a turnover standpoint, just kind of predicting this, Matthew Stafford definitely has the better chance of a clean slate as opposed to Jalen Hurts, who could get you definitely points on the ground, but from the fumble / just being newer, going up against a better defense, the chance to throw the ball away as a pick as well kind of lingers for me.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we keep it going here. Neil Fields, Cortland Sutton, or Jamal Williams, flex, full PPR.
Ooh. Damn. So the first one was Sutton, right?
Yes.
Okay, so with Sutton, the thing is Sutton literally just, I don't know what happened last week. So Judy goes down, Sutton doesn't play good. What the hell is that? Yep. I mean, I don't know what to think because, again, this is a juicy matchup. This is a great matchup for the Broncos. But again, it's so hard. Now, normally I'm a risky guy, right? I like to take these risks. So I'm fine starting Sutton, but I'm starting him in one of my leagues. But you have to understand the risk is that maybe Tim Patrick gets more targets than him. Maybe KJ Hamler gets more targets than him. Maybe he's not 100% healthy, which is what they were talking about for a lot of the offseason. So you have to take that, put that into consideration. The other option was Jamal Williams, right? That was the other option?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you saw the video of Jamal Williams. He's a funny guy, but I don't really trust him up against the Packers. He played huge against the 49ers. And, you don't get any points for being fucking funny on TikTok like Jamal Williams is. So I'm going to go with Cortland Sutton. Those are two tough options. I'm hoping Sutton has a big game as I have him on my team. So we're going to go with Cortland Sutton, but not in a big way because I do have Jamal Williams against you. So I'm hoping Jamal Williams plays good as well. But Cortland Sutton's my answer.
Waiting for that, for you to just slide that in there at the end there. It's your second running back. Now, where do you have Jamal Williams ranked on your weekly TikTok rankings?
He's probably number 2 behind Juju, who's the king of TikTok, and Claypool. Claypool I don't know, you probably don't have a TikTok, but I'm on TikTok, and Chase Claypool stole the Super Bowl trophy. He stole the Lombardi from the Steelers Stadium, so that's got to give him some fantasy points this week. He's got.
Look at you ageist, assuming that my ancient ass doesn't have a TikTok, or at least not creeping in and peeking at TikTok. Come on,
that's not really that ageist. I don't know. Do you have a TikTok? No,
I no.
Yeah, exactly.
But I see. Yes, exactly right. Look, I have an Instagram, an Instaface. I have a Snap face.
Yeah,
I have it all.
That's what Bill Belichick says. The Snap face, the Insta chat.
Yes, the Instaface, right? Whatever it may be.
The Instaface.
All right, Nasty FN, Chenault or Hines at the flex. Now this is full PPR.
All right, we're going Hines here pretty quickly, right off the gun, because with Chenault, I really think that Chark and Jones are the clear guys over him. I don't think Urban Meyer, to be honest, now I know some people hate this. Like I said, Urban Meyer's a bit of a bozo, and people hate me for that. But I think he is, honestly. I don't think he's a great head coach. I think he's stupid. I don't think he knows how to use Chenault. And for that reason, we're going with Hines, because with a competent head coach, Chenault could easily put up top 24 receiver production week in and week out. But he doesn't have that coach, so we're going with Hines.
All right, so David Fan on the chat asked you to pick 2. So I'm going to just reverse this here and ask you to rank them. So you're still going to get the answer, David, as far as your 2 based on Nick's rankings. But I am curious to see how you have these 3 names. We haven't talked about Brandon Cooks at all, And that's a guy who definitely from a volume standpoint, if you believe the spread to be sharp and Houston down 2, maybe 3 touchdowns, he's going to be active by all means. So David's question to pick 2, but why don't you just rank where you have Julio, Brandon Cooks, and Mike Williams? David has as a half PPR, so you can slide that in there, but really just as far as how you have these 3 ranked.
Okay. First, we're going Julio. Because I just feel like the Titans are going to bounce back. If they have a bad game, then, maybe the Titans are just done for, right? Because there's no way they have 2 bad games, at least as bad of a game as they had last week where they couldn't move the ball at all. So I'm going Julio. Then we're going Brandon Cooks. Now, I know this might be a hot take. It definitely is a hot take because the Denver defense is pretty solid that they're playing against. Tyrod Taylor did look like Patrick Mahomes up against the Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and go with Cooks and then Mike Williams. But I do like Mike Williams slightly more than, you know what? Never mind. I'm reversing this. We're doing a full-on reversal here.
Whoa.
Reversal, 360 reversal. We're going with Mike Williams at 2 and then Brandon Cooks at 3 because the more I think about it, the more I just love this Cowboys game. I love Justin Herbert. I love Mike Williams. This is going to be a big game. Mike Williams, number 2. And then 3 is Cooks. But Cooks was a guy I didn't believe in last week, and he proved me wrong completely. Because, like I said, Tyrod Taylor literally looked like Patrick Mahomes out there.
Stafford or Jameis?
Stafford or Jameis? We're going to go ahead and go with Matthew Stafford. A lot of people are saying in my comment section of my videos that I'm under-believing in Jameis. But I don't think so. I just think I believe in Stafford a little too much, maybe. Maybe that's it.
Where do you have Jameis ranked this week as far as in your quarterback? Because I am curious, right? Whenever we have the start sits, it's one thing to look specifically at a guy in their matchups, but where do you have him just ranked overall?
I believe he is quarterback 13 or 14.
Okay, well, that's not too bad. Who's above him and below him, just to give us some perspective?
Above him would definitely be any of those main guys that we talk about, like obviously like the Rodgers, all those guys. Below him, I'm just going to pull it up right now to read you exactly who's below him.
Yeah, I was just going to, I mean, you could even give me the guy directly above him and directly below him just to kind of give us that little
so
context.
We got Jameis. Jameis is 13. Right above Jameis is Tannehill. Right below Jameis is Burrow.
Okay. That sounds reasonable based on how we've talked about both guys outside of Jameis that have come up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Jameis is a guy that he's always a risky play, right? Because there's always a chance the guy throws 4 interceptions in a game, and it is what it is. That's the risk you're taking when you play Jameis, but you could also get 5 touchdowns like you got last week. So I'm not overwhelmingly scared to play Jameis.
Rubio, good point there. The father and son show. Look, man, I'm aware of what's happening on TikTok, okay? It's not like I can't find it on my marketplace. All right, so as we wind down here.
Marketplace.
Well, right, exactly. I left that there for you. Mr. Rogers follows this up. Devontae Smith or Chase Claypool?
We're going with Claypool up against the Raiders. The Raiders defense looked pretty soft to me up against the Ravens. And at the end of the game, they looked pretty strong. Now, people were getting mad because I said the Raiders defense looked soft. I think they're maybe not Charmin ultra soft, but they didn't look amazing. So I'm probably going to lean Claypool here. I think the Steelers, Big Ben's always way better at home. If you look at the away splits versus the home splits for Big Ben, this guy's dominant at home. So I'm all for Claypool this week.
Robbie Anderson or Jacoby Myers? And you're being asked to hurry by C. Crip on that one.
All right, I'm hurrying really quick. We're going with Anderson, but I do think Myers is going to have a much better game than he had last week.
Herbert Brown. And whenever we have 3, this is, again, let's go back to your rankings here, where you have them ranked, and give us your number 1 choice, of course, between these 3 quarterbacks, Baker, Winston, or Big Ben.
Okay. We got Baker at 15, Jameis at 13, Big Ben 17. So the answer is Jameis.
Really? Ben Roethlisberger ranked that low in this matchup?
Yeah, well, that low, when you think about like who's ahead of him, I got Kirk ahead of him, Baker ahead of him, Burrow ahead of him. Like I don't know. I have probably the highest quarterbacks I'm on that aren't super atypical this week are Bridgewater and Mac Jones. So I got an 18 and 19.
Okay. Again, that without seeing every name in front of me, that kind of gives a little more context. So you don't need to bite my head off when I question one of them on the rankings. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Fuck you.
Ed Seat 1 on the chat. Your boy Julio or AB full PPR. Now this is a test right here of conversation that we've had today.
All right, we're going Antonio Brown over Julio. The matchup is better for Brown. Julio again. All right, so I have Julio right now ranked as 20, Antonio Brown 17. So it is very, very close, but I think Antonio Brown has the higher upside over Julio. But I'm really going to probably feel like a dumbass when Julio scores 2 touchdowns against Seattle. But yeah, we're going with AB.
And I see Chris on the chat reminding we have 120 spots left. So again, good time to remind you to jump in on this. The 2K Everybody Wins Awesemo exclusive. It's only $1 to enter. You can pick players throughout the 13 games today, and the top 537, all of that, top 537 will share a $2,000 prize pool with $200 going to first place. Not bad, right?
Yeah, make sure you guys get in on that. That's literally free money, basically.
Seriously. I mean, that's as best of a way that you can put it right there. Free money, $1 to enter, and the top are going to take that share down of 2 G's. And again, 200 to the number 1 first place contestant. James Robinson versus Tyson Williams, full PPR.
Oh, man, that's a question of the century right there, because James Robinson got severely underused last week. I don't know if you were watching the game, but James Robinson made the best play of the game by tackling someone after Lawrence threw a pick. He literally ran 1,000 miles per hour at this guy. It was impressive. So I have Tyson Williams ranked at running back 27. Now, again, I feel like the upside is potentially top 12, but there is the Latavius Murray factor behind him, who could be seeing some decent workload, especially if Williams struggles with blocking like he did last week. And the other option was who? I just completely. Oh, no, Robinson, 23.
Yeah, Tyson Williams or Robinson, right?
Yeah, Robinson is 23 up against Denver. Denver has a good run defense, but if Urban just has to get this guy the ball and he'll be good. So hopefully Urban figures it out. James Robinson over Williams.
All right, winding down here. And again, hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed as well here to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel, GV2.
Yes,
and we can go back to just how you have these ranked as well when you'll give us the number 1 option here. Davis, Aguilar, or Marvin Jones? We'll go full PPR.
Davis, Aguilar, or Marvin Jones. Okay. Davis, Aguilar, Marvin Jones. All right, so we have Aguilar coming in here at a hot. Aguilar's a hot 52.
Okay.
Nelson Aguilar. Who was the other guys? Marvin Jones?
Corey Davis and Marvin Jones. I'm going to guess you go Jones, but
Marvin Jones is 42.
Okay.
And Corey Davis is 31. So the answer is Corey Davis.
Corey Davis. That's a pretty significant gap between the other two. So GV2, you better roster. Sorry.
It is, but it also isn't, because when you're looking at the guys in between them, it's they're all so close. So it's in between them, you got Sterling Shepard, who obviously had a big game, but Jarvis Landry, he's the only receiver there with Odell out. You got Tyler Boyd, who could have a big game against Chicago, Jacoby Myers, all that. So I don't think it's a super big gap. Technically, it is, though.
Winding. So it's a gap. We can at least agree on that.
Oh, God. All right, keep going.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, just saying there's 7 seconds before lock. I had to click enter on my lineup. We're good.
All right, last one. Thomas Gaskin or Corey Davis? Flex half PPR. Please help.
Thomas Gaskin or Corey Davis? We're going with Corey Davis.
Beautiful. Make sure you thank Nick on Twitter at Notorious FNTSY. I'm at Shander Show. Thank Chris for producing here in the chat. And you already gave a couple of picks, a couple of nice little picks, juicy at parlay, and one to look at the total over 55, which I'll just tail as well. All right, my friend. Anything left we want to get out? We blew through this here.
Yeah, we did. Thank you guys all for coming out. We will be live again every single Sunday at the same time, maybe even potentially earlier next week around the same time, though. We're having a great time every single week, having fun. So I hope you guys have fun. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you check out all of us on here. Make sure to follow us all on Twitter. Make sure to have a fun time. That's the most important thing about fantasy football, is having a good time.
I'll just leave you with this. Make sure you follow me on TikTok, and we're back again next Sunday.
Love that.